How strong was the Jersey crew, and was Tony Soprano really small potatoes compared to Johnny Sack and Phil Leotardo? How self-contained was the Soprano family? What kept it from becoming full-fledged? And why do many refer to Tony's organization as a glorified crew? Let's get to the bottom of this. The DeMeo crime family originated in New Jersey in the 40s, and the first official boss was Ercole DeMeo. We see him in The Many Saints of Newark, played in the movie by none other than David Chase himself. In the 50s, key family members were John Francis Soprano, Corrado Jr. Soprano, Michelle Fitch Lamanna, and Raymond Curto. The Sopranos were a vital part of the DeMeo family, with Johnny Boy and Jr. as the leaders of two separate brigades. Furthermore, the Sopranos had long-term ties to members of 5 of the New York families, most notably the Lupertazzi crime family. While DeMeo remained officially the boss, the Sopranos were unofficially in charge in Jersey. I realize this sounds rather complex, so let's break it down. Throughout the series, in addition to Tony Soprano's crew, we hear about the crews of June, Christopher, April, Altieri, Baresi, Curto, and Fitch Lamanna. Right up until the death of Jackie April, Tony's friend, the Sopranos, hold the position of captain, and Jackie is the underboss. The founder of the DeMeo family is doing a life term. With Jackie's demise, the position becomes vacant, and the logical question is, who will take the helm? Those wishing there are two, Uncle June and Tony Soprano. The majority of mafiosi want to see Tony as the new Don. Soprano is excellent for this role because of his capability to rule and supervise people, and also because of his contacts and skill. However, June also has his backers and is unwilling to relinquish the throne. One of the best ways to help Tony is when Dr. Melfi advises him on a strategy for dealing with the elderly. She advises him to make them feel respected, heard, and so on. Soprano takes advantage of Melfi's tactics and agrees to concede June in a battle for the throne. Ultimately, June is crowned, and Tony keeps his position as captain. In reality, though, it was quite different. Tony's rise to power is slightly unconventional. Soprano becomes the chief of the DeMeo crime family without being officially assigned and without taking out his competitors. Tony Soprano successfully gains control of the DeMeo crime family using a skillful strategy that helps him avoid undesirable scrutiny from the authorities. Yet not all the leaders and capos of the other families have appreciated his method. Had the situation unfolded in New York, the other families presumably never would have tolerated anyone operating the organization straight out of the shadows. Now, that's not to say that the approach was a poor idea. Tony used his uncle as a thunderbolt and ruled things from backstage. But the competition for major position would have been tough. Think at least of the war after Carmine Lupertazzi Sr. died. Blood poured instantly through the streets of New York. And neither Carmine, Jr. nor Johnny Sack were willing to concede. That said, because Tony is a resident of Jersey and with no other family in close proximity, Soprano regularly oversteps his bounds. And all because New York City is not taking the crew from New Jersey seriously. At the time of the series events, the Soprano family is one of the most influential in most parts of the country, even though it has about 50, 60 members compared to one of the 5 New York families in the series. The Lupertazzis, Tony's brigade seems insignificant, considering that the Lupertazzis have a minimum of 200 members. It is therefore not unexpected that Carmine Lupertazzi refers to it as nothing more than a glorified crew. Phil Leotardo, a seasoned capo of the Lupertazzi family, has voiced his dissent with the acknowledgement of the Sopranos, officially known as the DeMeo family, as a full family of reasonable weight and power. According to him, they are merely a high-income, notorious crew. The only credible mobster in New York who acknowledges Tony as a legitimate boss is John Sacramone, who primarily relies on a personal relationship with Tony. Once Phil is the boss, he is determined to subdue the New Jersey branch of the Mafia. He feels that cutting out an extra link in management is a prudent business decision. That said, we can certainly call the Sopranos a family rather than just a crew, for they have a boss, Tony Soprano, and several prosperous crews. Tony has an official consigliere, Sil, as well as Hesh, who might be called an unofficial counselor. The family also has an underboss, and of course the captains. True, many of them will die or start singing by the end of the series, but right now, we are analyzing events in their entirety, rather than any single page of the story. The only thing that I feel prevents them from being considered a valid family is their lack of a voice on the commission. Had they had a seat on the commission, Phil Leotardo would have had to be more careful in his choice of language. In addition, New York families benefit from having the Jersey family considered as a crew, for they are obliged to send the juice upstairs, that is, to that same New York or capo di tutti capi. If the Sopranos got a seat on the commission, they would gain some serious weight and clout, and they would become a serious threat and a reckoner, which would keep the other families from doing things the way they wanted them to. One good example from history is the situation with the Zips in the 70s and 80s. In the 70s and 80s, two groups of merciless killers emerged in the organized crime world of New York City. The Westies, a gang of Irish mobsters from Manhattan, and the Zips, young mobsters brought in from Sicily. Both groups posed a serious threat to established crime families and were considered insecure. The Zips were considered the worst of the two groups, but they were tolerated because of the considerable profits they brought to the Mafia, especially to the Bonanno and later Gambino families. Some of the Zips became so rich that they had to get very creative, such as buying a real fur coat for a Barbie doll belonging to one of their daughters. Bonanno family soldier Lefty Ruggiero explained to Donnie Brasco the connection between Carmine Galante, head of the Bonanno family, and the Zips. Ruggiero said that many people dislike Galante, but that he is closely associated with the Zips. Galante brought the Zips in from Sicily and started using them for various affairs, including dealing drugs. The Zips proved to be as ruthless as Galante, and no one could trust them but the old man. Several theories exist as to the origin of the word Zips. According to one version, they were so called because of the Sicilians' passion for ziti. In another theory, the name originated from the Zips' use of noiseless, homemade lightning pistols. Also, the name may be a mockery of the Zips' manner of speaking. They barely spoke English, with a Sicilian accent so dominant that local Italian Americans had trouble understanding them. Later on, Paul Castellano, who succeeded the late Carlo Gambino, informed the Zips that the majority of their profits should go to him, even though any family member implicated in the drug business would face death. According to Castellano, this regulation was not applicable to him. The Zips, led by Sal Toto Catalano, agreed to the new settlement, but it soon became clear that the Zips were not too respectful of the deal. They began to carry out various operations on Gambino family territory without the Godfather's approval. The Zips felt it necessary to obey only their Sicilian bosses. The Zips' power grew with the growth of their drug revenues. Then Castellano realized that the Zips were growing stronger than his own troops. The situation was eventually resolved, but in this case, I was most interested in a notorious Zip by the name of Cesare Bonventre. He became a capo at a very young age, only 28, after betraying his boss, Carmine Galante. Curiously, Tony Soprano also became a capo quite early, at 27. The Zips, at one point, even requested the commission to acknowledge their crew as a separate family, which was quickly rejected. The American bosses wanted no trouble because, if they acknowledged the Zips self-contained, they would have to be reckoned with. Where would it all lead to? In any case, when things escalated, Cesare was taken out, and his body was found hacked in two and stuffed into 2 tanks of glue in a warehouse in New Jersey. Many people are aware, I think, that the Soprano family is largely based on the real-life De Cavalcante Mafia family from Jersey. This De Cavalcante family was regarded as less prosperous than the New York and other area families, primarily because of their smaller size and lack of a voice on the commission. With no seat on the commission, they were not a real family in the eyes of their larger counterparts. Throughout the 80s, the De Cavalcante family had strong ties to the Gambino family, which was led by John Gotti. Sammy Gravano claimed that they were Gambino's watchdogs and performed a number of assignments for them. Gravano alluded to this relationship in his interviews and stressed that the De Cavalcante family had a great devotion to Gotti and carried out all of his commands unquestioningly. In exchange, Gotti would provide them with backup and advocacy whenever a conflict or a dispute occurred. Today, the De Cavalcante family has about 60 members and 100 associates. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe to Vano VHS and hit the like button.